Hey everyone, welcome back to some new malicious compliance stories. I hope you had a great day. If you would like to help me grow this channel, please press the like button. It really helps in the algorithm. And if you haven't already, why don't you make this the video that you subscribe to the channel? And with that out of the way, let's start with the first story. The first story is called Stupid Policy. Before 2020, my significant other and I were doing some shopping and decided to eat at a Harvester, a large chain here in the UK. It's reasonable food at the cheaper end of the scale and okay when you're not looking for a posh dining experience or anything. There was a daytime, soft drink, salad bar buffet, main course and dessert offer on, which came to £30 for 2 people. A bargain which we ordered. The food turned out to be pretty good. We made more than one trip to the buffet, and suffice to say, by the time we'd finished our main courses, we didn't feel we needed the desserts. So I instead asked the server for the bill. The bill arrives and we have been charged an additional £9 for £39 in total. I query with the server. That offer is only valid with desserts and you said you didn't want desserts anymore. We intended to have the desserts, but we are too full for them now, so we don't want them, but I didn't expect we would be charged more. Well, you have not ordered the offer anymore, so there's nothing we can do. Cue the malicious compliance you can see coming by now. Well, then I'd like to order 2 desserts please. You can bring them over, we won't eat them, and you can get the £9 knocked off the bill for us. At this point the server looks at me with a bewildered look and says you get the manager. My other half, who is more of a shrinking violet in these situations, is looking a little uncomfortable. A few moments later, the manager comes over and asks why we don't want to pay. I explain that I do, but I don't expect to pay more for saving waste. But by all means to bring over the desserts and we will leave them there on the table when we leave. Comprehending this, she agrees to just charge us for the meal deal. That is just plain stupid, don't you think? Only works on people that don't complain, the rest will likely just don't come back to that place after this experience. The next story is called Told You So. The school I currently work at went through an overhaul of assessment marking and submission policies. Important fact, all assessment marking was done by hand, because we were still stuck in the dinosaur age. So the head teacher holds a meeting, stating that all marking is to be changed to an online system. There we would have to type a separate comment for each criterion for all assessment tasks, rather than write an overall comment. You can imagine the uproar from all the older teachers. They were super comfortable with writing, but you can imagine the 2-finger typing method they were used to. I already saw this change coming, as all students went online due to 2020 and it was me who implemented this change for my department. I had a light bulb moment when all that happened. I reworked every single assessment by reducing the number of criteria by half of what we had, so we would have fewer lines to mark. This was more work for me, but less work for everyone else. But being a team player is always good, right? I raised my hand in the meeting to tell them what I had done for all of us. But me being the youngest teacher there, they told me to put my hands down, shut up and sit in my spot while they moaned and groaned about the changes. Fine, I sat there waiting for my time to go home. Fast forward a week when an assessment with 6 lines is released to be marked. It may not seem much, but if I have 6 lines, times around 50 words, times 60 students, it all adds up. It took me about 5 days to completely finish all of the markings for my students in between all of the other teaching and social life activities I had. But not for the other teachers. All of them had to bring work home every night. Some were also coming in as early as 5 AM as they were falling behind so badly. Not to mention that one teacher accidentally forgot his wife's birthday. He sat at work marking, while she sat at the dinner table waiting for him, but he never showed up until bedtime. The looks on their faces were priceless when I went home on time every day. Thank you, speech recognition. This lasted for about 3 weeks, until all teachers finally finished their work. After all of the flames settled down, the head teacher calls me into her office. She asked me how I managed to complete my work so efficiently. So I pulled out all of my assessment rework and placed them on her table. I told her, remember how you told me to put my hand down, shut up and sit tight? I was trying to lighten our workload and help everyone out. Then I looked up at her whiteboard in her office. She had written up a plan which stated exactly what I had done for assessment reworking in my spare time to help. So I turned around and said, told you so. Then I walked out. Now I'm the leader of assessment design for my department at school. Everyone cannot thank me enough for giving back their free time every time an assessment comes around. I still haven't told anyone about speech recognition, but that is just my ace up my sleeve. The third story is called You Don't Actually Sell. I'm a service writer for a vehicle maintenance and repair shop. I have the capability to actually do the work, but I make more money for my company in sales, services and parts. So my job started when I came in 2 years ago from a different company. They hired me because not only can I sell, but I can complete the services that I sell. Fast forward about 6 months. They are so impressed with my sales that they inform me that I'm only to perform the work if there are absolutely no other technicians available to complete the job in a timely manner. I would still be receiving my bonus for sales, as the name implies, sales bonus. Great, so I get on it. I am breaking records, bringing in new clients, teaching others to sell as I do. And I'm making good money. Fast forward a bit more and they transfer me to another location. I'm quickly outshining their top service writer who was never given the order to only sell. I'm still expected to just sell. I checked when I was transferred. Shortly thereafter, said other service writer decides to get in touch with the owners and say that I am stealing commission. The way commission works is this: the service writer, whoever sells the job or part, gets some, and the person performing the job gets some. So if you do both, you get more on that specific job. I'm doing my sales job long term by now. I've informed customers on previous visits that they are coming up due for such and such services. They come back and ask for me to get said services completed on schedule, thus they are coming in requesting services. Returning to the complaint that I'm stealing. The other service writer complained that because I'm not actually doing the work, I shouldn't receive any commission at all for services. He backs it up with the fact that customers are coming in requesting services and therefore I'm not actually doing any actual selling. Keep in mind, these are customers I've reached already and put in for future sales, on top of new sales that I worked for on the spot as well. The owner decided to take his side, thus my new job description is to simply service write, no commission, don't perform services. Customer service only. You don't actually sell. These customers come in asking for these services, so you shouldn't benefit from this. Again, I'm fully aware that these are my previous customers whom I've given heads up that they will soon be due for certain services, but I keep my mouth shut. Alright then, I won't actually sell. I work for a bit of spare income. My husband is a wonderful mechanic who works at my original store and he makes the big bucks in flag hours. Within a month, sales and services dropped dramatically. Customers weren't coming in requesting commissionable services and I'm no longer pushing sales at all. Why make them money if I'm not also making money? I'm not even allowed to perform the services, so there's no way that I can make a commission at this point. Sometime later, the owner drops in, wanting to know why the store suddenly stopped making sales. So I told him, I don't actually sell, so my commission stopped coming in, sir. A good meeting with the other service writer later and I moved back to my other store. I was redeemed of any accusation of theft with a raise. Commissions are back to the way they used to be and my sales have never been better. And the other service writer? He's just a technician now, not even allowed to work with the customers at all. Maybe a small victory, but a victory all the same. The last story is called Just Because Everyone Else Does It Doesn't Mean It's Right. New Zealand has some particularly predatory property managers. Their prey is university students and young families who live in our bigger cities. There are stories in our news quite frequently about how poorly they treat tenants. I spent my 20s living in rental properties in Wellington. Most of the houses I lived in were super bad but super expensive. They are even worse now. Fortunately, New Zealand has a fantastic tenancy tribunal who are sick of property managers preying on young people who do not have a lot of money. When I was about 28, my now wife and I found a beautiful house in a suburb called Berhampore. Close to the city, quiet area, near a bus stop, plenty of space including a pretty garden in the back and, most importantly, not expensive. A perfect house. Just before we moved in, I took about 200 photos of the house. I've become very wary of how easily property managers could rake a tenant over the courts for damages or garbage the previous tenant left behind. We spent a year and a half living there without incident. We had to report to the property manager that trash had been left under the house by the previous and they dealt with it well. When we needed to install high-speed broadband, they were easy to deal with and everything seemed to be going swimmingly. About 4 months prior to the end of our lease, I was offered a brewing job in the United States. I informed our property manager that we would need to break our lease earlier than expected. She replied, "No problem, let's arrange a time to meet." Prior to the meeting with her, I researched her company's policy on moving out of rental properties prior to the agreed date. The company policy was that if a tenant broke the agreement early, then the tenant would have to pay $750 to the property manager. This was supposed to cover the listing fee. I should mention at this point that listing properties in Wellington was not challenging nor expensive. Most properties were filled within a week. Some property managers were even expecting people to show up with cash to cover the bond plus the first month's rent when they were having viewings of the property. There was no way that $750 was going towards just the listing fee. When I went into our meeting, I told her that we were willing to ensure that the property was cleaner than when we arrived. Also, we were willing to offer an extra $200 for moving out prior to the lease ending. At that point, she showed me the company policy, which stated leaving prior to the end of the agreed lease date would mean a $750 fee for us the tenants. I acted flabbergasted, as one would, to hear of this shocking news. At this point, our property manager explained to me that the tenants before my wife and I were in a similar situation and had left prior to the agreed date. I explained to her that this was extortion and I thought it was incredibly unfair. I repeated to her that we had offered her $200 to help with listing the property and that we were willing to list it ourselves. I also said to her that it was ridiculous to think that it would cost more than $100 to list and fill that property. She explained to me that is what the tenants before you did, paid the $750, and that's just what everyone does. To which I replied, just because everyone else does it doesn't mean it's right. We argued some more and left it unresolved. On my way out of the office, she said if this is still an issue, you should get in touch with the tenancy tribunal. With the rage of 1,000 suns and the ability to bottle emotions like a true Catholic, I managed to respond, "I'll do that." As soon as I got home, I went on to the Tenancy Tribunal website. I filed a complaint against the company she represented. Within a day, the tribunal had agreed to help me and contacted the property manager. In turn, she emailed me, begging for mercy. "If you agree to drop the complaint, we won't charge you anything." The owner is very disappointed, but if you leave the house in a good state, there will be no more issues. We are not absolute trash, so of course we cleaned the place thoroughly. We moved out without paying them a dime. But the real reward came when I saw her in the city and greeted her with a big smile and wave. I didn't think I had the power of invisibility, but she didn't seem to see me at all. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the video in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.